Boyd Carr with Isla del Sol.
Hi, good morning. I'm Craig Vance with Terramar. Go Astros. There you go.
Chris Lauer for Vita Beach.
And Dan Wallace for Spanish Grand Bayside.
And we have our board member Peggy Zaylor's on the freeway somewhere trying to come here, but she'll be here in a little bit. Let me introduce you to some of our elected officials. First one is Marie Robb, City Council member, District 6. Taz Jones, Alderwoman with the City of Jamaica Beach. County Commissioner Joe Giussi. Joe, do you want?
Thank you, sir. Not going to talk about mosquitoes. Because Mother Nature took care of them. We might have helped a little, but Mother Nature did it. We did finalize our budget, which if you saw anywhere, we have lowered our rate, our tax rate. I'm not going to say we lowered your taxes, because we didn't. We lowered the rate for the 11th straight year. We're down to about 37 cents a hundred. When we started in 2010, 2011, it was 62 cents. So it's down, it's quite a bit. We've also reduced our debt by about 40 to 50%. So we're doing really well in those areas. One of the main things our legislative team is after this year is getting control of the CAD. We have to get control of the appraisal district. And we're gonna have a lot of help with that from Austin, so we're hoping we're heading in the right direction with that. So any questions on anything that the county's doing? If not, thank y'all. Thank you.
Are there any talk about repaving the seawall? Doesn't that belong to the county?
There's always talk about repaving the seawall. Yes, the county is county kind of maintained, if you would. Anything we do there, we have to go through the Corps of Engineers and also the state. But the county somehow wound up with the rocks and the seawall.
Yeah.
Even though it's really a state road, but yeah.
Some big bumps.
Yeah, no doubt. So yes, to answer the question, yes, there is some talk about doing that. Exactly when, I'm not sure. So, but yeah, it's in the works.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Okay, let me introduce candidates for office. Terry Leo Wilson.
Early voting starts on Monday, October 24th, this coming Monday from 8 to 5. Don't forget to vote. There will be very little lines since it's midterm, so make sure you get out and vote. The polls will be open on Saturday from 7 to 7, I think. And then Sunday, 1 to 5. And then all the next week, it'll be 7 to 7. And then Election Day, November 8th.
And it's Seaside Baptist.
Yes.
Seaside Baptist is the closest here.
It's the closest here.
Community Methodist also.
Yes,
And
yes. So
what are
vote
you asking for?
Yeah, vote for Terry Leo Wilson.
Thank you, Terry Leo. And also Michael Williams running for Congress. District 14.
Thank you. I won't take up too much of your time. I know y'all are here to listen to our current representative as the keynote speaker. My name is Michael Williams. I'm running for Congressional District 14. A little bit about myself. I'm an attorney, mediator. I am a co-founder of a nonprofit healthcare careers college, Central Texas Allied Health Institute. A little bit what I would like to do for our district. I would like to actually focus on infrastructure for flood mitigation. 2008 Hurricane Ike happened. We've had 5 major weather events since then, and nothing has been done to protect your property. We need to invest in coastal protection. I know that the Ike Dike was just approved. I don't know if that is the answer, but it is a step. We don't have funding for it. It has been suggested that we fund that with reconciliation, more debt. What I think we should do is actually, I think we should decriminalize marijuana nationally, work with the state to legalize it either for medicinal use or for adult recreational use, tax that, use those taxes to pay for infrastructure in our district so we do not have to raise property taxes. Folks, one thing I'd like to tell y'all is I'm a Texan first and foremost. I'm not beholden to any party, any political ideal. I want what is best for our district, period. We need an advocate who fights for our district, fights to get funding for our district, fights to propel our district into the 21st century, and not a cheerleader for one side. So, thank y'all. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Michael Williams. Vote for Michael Williams. Starting Monday, of course, as Terry said, Monday through the next 2 weeks and November 8th. Second name that you'll see on your ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And I have to say that we want to hear from candidates, but the West Galveston Island Property Owners Association does not support any particular party or candidate, but we do want to hear from them. And the other person that's here, that's elected, is our Randy Weber, Congressman. So he'll be speaking a little bit. You're the main speaker. Well, Marie, you're next. We'll hear from City Council Member Marie Robb on District 6 happenings. She's got some good news.
I forgot I gave Jerry my notes. I don't remember what I was gonna say. No, that's not true. Anyway, we do have a lot of good things happening. Thanks to Randy Weber, we are working closely with the Corps of Engineers to get that beneficial use of dredge actually moved to the west end of the island, as well as we are working with GLO. We have the design and engineering of a beach project that will be starting, actually we heard, by the first of the year. Sometimes Texas government is so slow, kind of like Galveston government sometime, but with thanks to Randy Weber, it's pushing forward faster. It was great with the Corps because he actually put together a meeting up in his office where when you meet with the Corps Colonel, he's never alone. And it's funny because we usually have from the city maybe 4 people. And when we meet with the Corps Colonel, they come with 24 people. But we surprise them, and I have to say the city has been very proactive because in order to get the beneficial use of dredge project moved to the west, and it may end up being that we're trucking it, but we're working every effort. We had to go to the Port of Houston, the Port of Texas City, and the Port of Galveston, which of course was the easiest, and get a no objection letter. And of course, the big elephant in the room is the Port of Houston. And we kind of shocked the Corps because we got the non-objection letter from, granted with caveats, can't cost more money, but the GLO had already committed to pay for the extra cost, can't delay the project. So I just want to tell you, we are working hard on beach, and not that we're ignoring further west, because our ultimate goal is to have a huge West End project, and that's part of the whole coastal protection district. But our emergency area is really from like 7 Mile to really 12.5 mile. But it only makes sense to go to 13 Mile Road because there is a nourishment going in at the end of the seawall that will go to Delanera Park, but we will be adding on that. But at the same time all this is going on, we are also working with the GLO, and we will be putting in for both Go Mesa as well as Kepra for a large nourishment on the West End. And the GLO has been very supportive. Of course, we all know there's elections coming on, and I think they know they will have a new boss, and I think we all think it'll be Don Buckingham, who I have to tell you, I have even done a clay shoot with, and I don't shoot shotguns. But I have
Plays either.
No, I don't shoot clays either. Well, that's not true. I shot a couple. Matter of fact, at the chamber clay shoot, I actually won an award. It was the Ricky Bobby Award for being the last of the last, because if you're not first, you're last. But it was an award. I do have a plaque. So that's what matters. And I've never taken a lesson, and I did hit some. I have to say I was more like a companion shooter at Dawn Buckingham's, which Randy was on her team as well as Governor Rick Perry. So it gave me a lot of time to talk as well as a lot less bruises, because I'll tell you, when I finished that chamber one, this whole arm was black. But the other thing that I have on the agenda, and I hope that you will all, we have a meeting this coming Thursday. I hope you all will flood, and I'll be putting this out through Jerry. I have the inequity and the issues in District 6 roads. Our roads, so many of our roads, especially as you get out west, and granted we have Bay Harbor will be getting their roads remilled and overlaid, although they find it hard to believe, and like, when's that gonna begin? But we have a number of developments that haven't been touched since they have been developed. Well, the issue with that is, so when we do a road study, even though a number of our roads will come in as rated the lowest, the city takes the budget for the roads and they divide it 6 ways. Well, my district is 20 miles. The island is 32 miles. So that simply doesn't make sense. We're, well, 45% of the tax base, and we probably are, surprisingly enough, 38% of the hot tax. Because currently, when it comes to hot tax, short-term rentals is 53%. There's 46,000 some odd number of short-term rentals, of which we are 2,600. But because of the fact that our average room rate is higher, we make up a major percentage of the hot tax as well. So that's important for 2 reasons. One being the beach money, because a part of that beach money can be used for renourishment. And it actually could even be used on Bayside projects, because that's an allowable hot tax. And if you read the paper or listened to the buzz around town, the city, hopefully it will pass, I'm in support of, the law reads that the hot tax should be put in the city's depository. So we have that on this upcoming agenda. And the city is going to really focus, especially in the beaches, of how we can use more of that out on the West End beaches. Because only putting sand in front of the seawall, and not that I'm opposed to that, right now I have buildings that are in jeopardy, I have people's lives that are in jeopardy, I have both public and private infrastructure, and that's a huge issue. So we're going to be looking at how we can use more of the hot tax, as well as I'm fighting to get a more equitable share of the streets money, because there's another thing that comes into play. There's also federal funds, which are CBDG funds, and every district qualifies for those except for District 6, because it has to be low to middle income. So even portions of District 5 qualify for that, but District 6 doesn't. So not only are they getting an equal share, but then they're also getting additional federal funds. So I'm gonna be sending out an explanation of this to Jerry so he can get it out to all of you, so that we can, it's only a discussion item, so it's not like you can come and comment. But I'm hoping on the next council meeting, which will be on November 17th, we will have it on as actually a voting item. And this is something, call the mayor about, because I have to have 4 votes to get anything passed. And the mayor covers the whole island, so he should be supporting us wholeheartedly in this, because it simply isn't fair. One of the other things that I'm actually working on with Randy Weber, and I've called some of the different presidents of homeowners associations, is the issue that we're having with the US mail, because of the fact that we have 2 different addresses. And Randy said, well, you know, put it on Facebook. And so I'm like, if I send it out to each of my subdivisions, we'd have about 5,000 names. So I've talked to different people like Dan and asked them to give me their biggest issues. And I'm gonna be handing all that over to Randy this week to see what we can do with this, because we also have a number of postal carriers that are retiring. So it's only gonna get worse, not better. One of the other things, and this is going to be an opinion poll, I think the mayor and some of the council people are looking at changing our meeting time to the afternoon. I personally think it's not fair to our citizens. If you do want to come and comment, as there are people still working, everyone's not retired. I think the meeting should stay at 5 o'clock. So can I have a show of hands of how many people think the meeting should stay at 5 o'clock versus 1 o'clock in the afternoon? So 5 o'clock, 1 o'clock. All right, so majority wins. And I've been talking at a number of homeowners meetings, and everyone feels the same way. And they'll say the argument, well, look, nobody's here. It's like, yeah, nobody's here because there isn't an issue of concern. This is, you know, just, but when there is an issue of concern, such as golf carts, I'll tell you, my CIO people, Pirates people, they showed up en masse and we were able to get things changed. I don't want to, one other thing I'll mention that we've been working, Sally's here, she'll be talking about this, as well as Randy, is on, I recently participated on a group that, an advocacy group that was set up by the Greater Houston Partnership for the coastal surge protection. And it was to go up to Washington. There was a group of maybe, Sally, how many of us was there? 9? Yeah. About 9 people. I'm usually the only one who ever participates from Galveston, just to mention. So it was like Mayor Joyner, Mayor Bechtel, myself, Sally was there. Sally is ours, you all know, our political advocate for the city, as well as people from the Greater Houston Partnership, Bob Mitchell, and a few others. And we went up to meet with all the members of the Appropriations Committee, and most importantly, depending upon the outcomes of the November elections, Kay Granger, which Randy set up personally, because if things do go as I hope they go, she will become the chair of Appropriations, which will be key for the coastal spine. So that we had so many great meetings. We met with bipartisan people, because Texas has what, 5 members on appropriations, 2 or 3 of which are Two. Two are Democrats, three are Republicans. We met with all of them, as well as we met with a representative from Mississippi, as well as we met with the trade organizations that cover the trucking industry. I don't want to steal Sally's thunder, so I'll let her talk about that. But I think that is very key and very important, because it is a large ask for that project. But as you may or may not know, what's involved for District 6 is putting in 200 feet of sand, which will go on top of anything else that we accomplish, or what we accomplish will be counted as an in-kind match. And it also is just large sand dunes, which we also all know will be an issue. But it was interesting on a meeting we had about a week and a half ago with the GLO, is they brought up fortified dunes before I did. And they said, we're getting this nourishment, Marie, you could get that private-public partnership with fortified dunes. So I was very glad to hear that. But I should cut myself short, I never do. But are there any questions? Okay. No.
Repeat his question, would you?
His question was, are they completely finished with 3005? And no, they are not completely finished. And we do still have some issues. And they are not returning our call. So we are actually working with Eliza Paul, because we're having flooding issue in some neighborhoods. We're still having drainage issue. As you saw this week, they were out with asphalt trucks, still fixing it, to know that it's kind of turned into like a 45. It just keeps on giving in not a good way. But so hopefully that'll be wrapping up once we get all the issues fixed, such as the new smart light at 12 Mile Road that sits there off and dumb with the other lights. So hopefully all that will come on somewhere in the next 60 days. But we stay on them constantly.
Once the issues are fixed, are they going to raise the speed limit back up to 55?
Okay, so folks, I'm going to remind you that your previous council person did an ordinance to change all of 3005 to 45 miles an hour. So I am in the process of trying to undo that ordinance. So they are doing a road study, and so I am working on undoing that. So that 45 was the construction number, but she got it passed as an ordinance.
I thought that was more of a suggestion.
No. Well, yeah, that's how I think of it.
When they're talking about fortified dunes, are they talking about fortified with geotubes?
I'm talking about geotubes. When I talk about fortified, I talk about geotubes. If there's been talk with the district about, because main importantly, we need sand, we need dunes, we need something there. And with the district, some of their civilian engineers think like I think, which always makes me happy when I have my rosy colored glasses on. We need to do, in a perfect world, we put a back pass system from the pass, and we would have the fortified structure of the back pass piping in the secondary dune. So we'd have a fortified dune as well as a way to constantly nourish the beach as we need it. But that's my rosy colored glasses. But fortunately, the chief civilian engineer at the Corps wears the same glasses I do. So that makes me feel good. Let me give you, before I close, my cell number is 409-256 4518. Again, that's 409-256-4518. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Marie. Sally,
Sally? See, I made you talk.
I don't think we have our police here today, but I'm gonna go on to Sally Bacco. She's also got some good news, so.
Thank you, Jerry. Again, some of you know me, but Sally Bacco, I'm the Director of Policy and Governmental Relations for the City of Galveston. But I'm here today as, in my capacity as board member on the Gulf Coast Protection District, to give you an update on what we've been up to. As Councilmember Rob mentioned, we went up to Washington this last month to visit with members of Congress. Congressman Weber was instrumental in our meeting with Representative Kay Granger. That's going to be a key relationship for us because if the Republicans do assume a majority, she is likely to be the next chair of House Appropriations. We are very fortunate that Representative Weber has built a really good relationship with Representative Granger. We had a very good conversation about the importance of this project, not just for this region, not just for Texas, but for what this project means to this nation. And, you know, it all comes down to supply chain and the fact that if you're going to manufacture semiconductors in the state of New York, you're likely going to need some basic chemicals in that manufacturing process. And that goes for Sherman, Texas, or Taylor, Texas, and retailers in other parts of the country rely upon our ports. Mississippi relies upon our port for agricultural commodities. Our farmers rely upon our petrochemical for fertilizer. So we had a really good conversation with her about that, as well as other members of the delegation, including Representative Tony Gonzalez and Representative John Carter, Judge Carter, and we met with Dan Crenshaw's staff as well, Representative Dan Crenshaw's staff. And Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. This was important because she's Mississippi and she sits on the Senate Appropriations Committee. Some other things that we have done, we met with Senator Cornyn last week. He met with us along with representatives from the Texas Chemical Council. Seabrook Mayor was there joining us in that conversation, and again we were talking about the importance of this project. And all I can tell you folks is we have to, when we're talking to people about this project, we have to start looking at it beyond just our region and beyond our state, because now we have to demonstrate to Florida, who is facing some tragic circumstances, why what happens here impacts them. Imagine Hurricane Ian hitting, and then 6 weeks later, a major hurricane hitting us. Florida was one of the 17 states impacted by the Colonial cyber attack, pipeline cyber attack. You know, that would significantly impact their ability to recover while we're shut down by getting hit by a hurricane as well. So all of this is linked. So we had a very good conversation with Senator Cornyn. Just in the past few weeks, I spoke to the Texas chapter of the American Shore and Beach Preservation Association. Thank you very much, Jerry, and gave them an update on where we are with the district. And let's see, we had about, this past month, we arranged 3 roundtable discussions with environmental stakeholders and trying to engage them on the importance of this project and the importance of this project for our beach maintenance and preservation. And you know, that's what I keep trying to share with folks. This is a great deal for Galveston and our Texas beaches. In fact, it doesn't get any better than this. construction of the dune system and beach expansion that Councilmember Rob was talking about is 65 federal fund, 35 non-federal sponsor. Let me repeat, non-federal sponsor. That means public-private, that means state funding, that doesn't just mean a local burden, okay? In fact, we're gonna work very hard in communicating that with the legislature starting in January. But the important thing, I believe, is this is, once constructed, this is every 6 years, 6 or 7 years, beach renourishment paid for 50-50, half federal, half non-federal share. That is a long-term, sustainable maintenance of our beaches, our greatest treasure here on Galveston Island. It just really doesn't get any better than that. Just real quick, and I know Congressman Weber will go into this as well. We're still waiting for authorization on the project, and remember, authorization is not funding. But we're hopeful. The Senate, during the consideration of the National Defense Authorization Act, the Water Resources Development Act was attached as an amendment to that, which means we are now on the Senate side, at least in a must-pass piece of legislation, and Congressman Weber will tell you more about that. Meanwhile, we're still working appropriations, and this is what is so absolutely critical right now, is identifying an appropriations vehicle, and right now there's two. There's the FY23 Omnibus Appropriations Bill, and there is the supplemental appropriations that Senator Mario Rubio is looking for the Hurricane Ian Florida recovery. So those are two prime opportunities. It's critical for us to be able to go to the legislature and say, Congress has stepped up. Congress is ready to commit. Now we need the state legislature to provide the funding. The U.S. Army Corps is looking for the first 2 years, $600 million. We're gonna need $200 million in state funding to match that $600 million. And this is critical because this is an historic project of a size the Corps has never encountered before, which means there's a staffing infrastructure that is needed so that they can hit the ground running as soon as possible. So we're working that very hard, and Congressman Weber is in the lead on communicating this message. His staff has just been incredible to work with, and we're very, very appreciative for the work that he's done for us on this. And I'm just going to take a second to take my GCPD hat off and put my city hat back on, because I gotta tell you, I am still just amazed by the miracle this gentleman pulled off. We have...
So was Brenda's mom.
We have 5 projects that the city proposed to Congressman Weber. 2 of them absolutely well, they're all critical, but one you'll understand. The water pipe along the causeway, we need to get that replaced. That is absolutely essential. If that were hit, we would have no potable drinking water on this island, okay? Water storage tank is the second project, absolutely critical, particularly following a storm. And we have 3 essential projects over at Scholes Airport to mitigate flooding and runway improvements. This gentleman was able to get this included as a funding opportunity for us in 2 appropriation bills. Now, it's still early yet. We have to see how we can work our way into that omnibus, but I am just amazed, because that is a very, very difficult thing to do when you're in the minority party in the U.S. House of Representatives. And I just want to extend our very sincere thanks to his efforts and his work, not just on the Coastal Spine project, but just projects that mean so much to Galveston. Thank you, Congressman. And I think I have probably talked too much, but there you go.
Thanks, Sally, really appreciate it. Thanks so much. How about a nice round of applause? Great work that you're doing. Peggy and I and Craig belong to the Beach Maintenance Advisory Committee of the Galveston Parks Board, and Marie too. And 3 of us were cycled off, and Craig is the only one left. But Peggy felt it was a good idea if we bring up the Beach Maintenance Advisory Committee, what they're doing, because it's so critical to the West End. So we're going to have Craig bring up his recent meeting that he had.
All right, thank you, Jerry.
We'll get there, Randy, hold on.
I'll make it very
I got more
brief.
time than I got money.
I'll make it brief. So as Jerry alluded to, Marie, Jerry, and Peggy and myself have been on the Beach Maintenance Advisory Committee at the Park Board for, this is my 5th year. Y'all termed out at 6 years, so it's 2-year terms. So I'm just starting my second half of my third and final term. So we had our first meeting of that new session a week ago, I guess. And most of the meeting was just introducing the new members and going around the table and telling a little bit about themselves. But then we did get down to a few items that I wanted to bring up. One is the federal seaweed permit renewal process is underway, and that is the seaweed inundation relocation program that we've all, I believe most of us have participated in. So that's going, they're going to continue that with the West End HOAs to operate under the federal permit that the Park Board is going to obtain. So we'll have that service going forward as well. A couple of other things that they wanted to bring up is there's a new program called Up to You, and it's essentially like an onion sack type material, bags that they're going to provide along the island in 3 different locations. The one that's going to be servicing the West End is going to be at Isla del Sol Beach, and there'll be a box that they're going to install with, 100, I don't know how many exactly, of these bags that people can come grab a bag for free, obviously, and they can store their trash in it or pick up trash as they walk the beach or whatever, and either take it with them or dump it and put it back or whatever. But it's a program that they've done in the hill country along the rivers and all that, and it's been a huge program, and we're doing that here as a pilot, and hopefully it'll take off and they can get more. But I think they have 3,000 bags, I believe, to start out with. So that'll be a cool thing. Also, if you're into, as most of us are, just walking the beach for leisure and you see some water bottle and go throw it away or whatever, there's a program called the Beach Ambassador Program that the Park Board is doing. You can find it on their website at galvestonparkboard.com, I guess. And when you sign up and register for that, if you'd like, you get a backpack and some gloves and some pickup stuff and whatever, and it's kind of a cool thing, but kind of incentivize everybody to help police the beach as well when we're out there. And then Marie alluded to the sand renourishment project that they are doing here in the next several weeks, and to her point, they are continuing to get the permits to do it all the way to St. Louis Pass. Obviously, that's a years and years out type of thing of actually getting the sand placed, but they are doing the permitting, and that's the intent, is to continue all the way to the pass from the end of the seawall. So our next meeting, I believe we have 2 more this year. So at our January meeting, I'll provide a better update because we'll have a more of a fluid meeting going. So thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Any questions for Craig? Well, we finally are going to hear from our congressman, so let me give you a little background about him. Congressman Randy Weber, he's represented the Texas 14th Congressional District, House of Representatives since 2013. He was previously a member of the Texas House of Representatives, representing the 29th District. Congressman Weber is a public servant, proven conservative, former small business owner, and 3rd-generation Texan. He holds a key leadership role in the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, serving as a ranking member of the Subcommittee on Energy. Congressman Weber is also a member of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, where he serves on 3 subcommittees: Water Resources and Environment, Coast Guard and Maritime Transportation, and Railroads, Pipelines, and Hazardous Materials. How about a nice round of applause for Congressman Randy Whitmer?
Thank you, Jerry. Well, it's pretty much all been said. Any questions? I want to give thanks to Marie Robb. She is very kind in setting up that city meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers. She was very instrumental, and she brought a lot of city firepower with her. So thank you for doing that, Marie. And Sally has been instrumental. She has taught and trained a lot of us. She's put together an Excel document about all the effects that a major catastrophe would have on a lot of states in this country because of who we are. Give Sally a hand. Thank you, Sally. We appreciate that. Now I gotta let go. I gotta get the cheaters on. So I brought notes, and thank you for saying that I spent 4 years in the Texas House before I got demoted to Congress, Gary. And interesting factoid, how many of y'all have heard about Ike, Hurricane Ike, or were here when it happened, right? A lot of y'all did. How many of y'all knew Dr. Bill Merrill? Well, is Bill still with us, Marie? I haven't seen or heard from him for a long time. He's still doing okay, Peggy? Well, I was in the Texas House, and who says bipartisanship is dead? Craig Allen, good friend of mine, was a state rep from Galveston back then. We had others, had Larry Taylor from Friendswood. We had a bunch of others. You remember that when those of you who were here during the night, that when the hurricane hit, it just devastated UTMB. I forget what, 6 feet of water or whatever it was, downstairs at UTMB, as well as a lot of other places. And the move in the legislature, there was, I won't name the chairman's name, but his initials are John Smithy. No. was to move UTMB off of the island onto the mainland. And we said, if you do that, you single-handedly devastate the economy of Ireland. And 18 state reps, 18 coastal reps came together, and we worked hard. And Craig Allen was instrumental in it. And we worked hard to keep UTMB right on this island. That was in 2009. So this old boy, and I grew up in a 20-mile radius on this side of the island. By the way, my wife Brenda's with you. Brenda, raise your hand there. And give her okay. Lady Buckles, you're comms director because she works for you. And Blake Hopper, your deputy director, he works for you. Y'all give them a hand, will you please? We never forget that we work for y'all. We are your government agency, your government office. If you have to interface for whatever, might be the Small Business Administration, might be the VA, might be, Lord forbid, this IRS, or FBI, but anytime we can help you, please reach out to us. We are your government liaison. So I've been paying attention a long time, having grown up south in the north edge of Pearland. Learned to ski in Offutt's Bayou when I was 16. How many of y'all know where Offutt's Bayou is? How many of y'all know they used to have a ski ramp out there? You remember that? I busted well, I won't go there. But I learned in 1969 to ski in Offutt's Bayou. So I've watched this whole area grow for a long time. And Marie is right. There's a lot of work to be done on beach renourishment. I'm so excited that she's involved, because if we can get all that done, we can continue to do this on a continuing basis. It just makes good sense. So we're pushing for that, And any problem with permitting, and you know this, that y'all have with the Corps, please reach out to us, because we are your liaison with the USACE, United States Army Corps of Engineers. Well, it's been an honor to represent y'all in Washington. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years. It seemed like it was yesterday. And I'll tell you what, on 3005, if they won't return your calls, Marie, holler at me. I've got Eliza Paul's cell phone number.
I do too, I just got it.
Okay, I got you. And of course, her husband.
But you calling is stronger than me.
Well, I think if Brenda would call, that would get their attention, right? You know what they say, behind every successful man is a surprise mother-in-law. Oh no, that's not what they say. So, but we would be glad to do that. And it was great to be with you and Dawn Buckingham. It never hurts to have a relationship with the incoming commissioner of the General Land Office. And she's on track. She's a smart cookie. She actually went through UTMB, believe it or not. She's a doctor. She went through. That's right. So it's good to have the GLO on your side. Trust me. And I'm good friends with George P. Bush too. We have each other say, well, text back and forth every now and then, but he's outgoing, so. Let me just say that this is one of the best districts in the country. I guarantee. Blue collar workers, teachers, fishermen, hunters, professionals, and folks, they go to church on Sundays and they love America and they love the beach. Did y'all mention walking up and down the beach was really a great pastime? Love the beach. Our district, 14, is the upper Texas Gulf Coast. We start at Louisiana. We've got all of Jefferson County, which will change slightly in redistricting. We'll lose about 27,500 people. We will pick up Orange County. So we'll have Orange County, Jefferson County, all of Galveston County, southern half of Brazoria County, right? Energy for us is huge, 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 and Sally is exactly on track. We have a major hurricane that comes up the Houston Ship Channel and destroys the refineries in Texas City, or Lord forbid would rupture a tank and dump a whole bunch of chemical in the Ship Channel, then out in Galveston Bay and ultimately the Gulf. It would be a catastrophe unparalleled. So we've been looking for coastal barrier protection ever since Hurricane Ike hit. Some people have said it's kind of fun. You get in a political contest, some people say, well, our congressional rep doesn't know the district. Really? Okay, sure I don't. You know, my wife Brenda and I made a pledge when we ran in 2011, 2012 that we would be the most active congressional couple y'all had ever seen, and we hope we've kept that pledge. You probably never saw the spouse of former congressmen when they were in office. Our district has 6 ports, more than the other member of Congress. We will get 7 ports when we pick up Orange. We produce 65% of the nation's jet fuel. In this country, we produce 80% of the nation's military grade fuel. We produce 20% of the nation's gasoline east of the Rockies. And that does not include, our 6 ports does not include the Port of Houston. If you jump up and get the Port of Houston in those figures, it is 85% of the nation's jet fuel. It's still 80% of the nation's military grade fuel. It is now 40-something% of the nation's gasoline east of the Rockies. And by the way, when Hurricane Ike hit in 2008, gas prices, you know, they went on skeleton crew up and down the Ship Channel. A lot of the refineries did. Pardon me. John Shipka, excuse me, John Shipka from Ohio rather, told me when I got into Congress that in 2008 when Hurricane Ike hit, their gasoline prices went up 60 cents a gallon. 60 cents a gallon. What we do is extremely important. We export 35% of our nation's natural gas. We've got 2 LNG plants, one in Freeport. We've got Golden Pass over on the other side of Beaumont, Port Arthur, and we've got 2 more on the books. We send out about 90% of the nation's LNG now. In full disclosure, Cheniere Energy over in Louisiana is one of the LNG gas plants, but one of our Texas companies has a contract with them to send their stuff out in the ships, get it out to the Gulf of Mexico. We are huge on LNG, and somebody mentioned the Colonial Pipeline earlier. Was that you? Somebody said something about the Colonial Pipeline. Was that Sally? Thank you. I'm getting old. I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. So here's what people need to know. The Keystone Pipeline would have come into our district over by Port Arthur. It carries 830,000 barrels of crude oil a day. The Colonial Pipeline system, back when they were hacked by Russian hackers, was down. You talked about Florida being affected. The Colonial Pipeline system, which feeds the entire part of the southeastern United States, one arm goes up into the northeastern part of the United States. The Colonial Pipeline system carries 3.1 million barrels of product a day, gasoline, jet fuel, and diesel. For the Keystone Pipeline to carry 830,000 barrels of product a day, it is 1/4 of the output of the Colonial Pipeline that feeds the entire southeastern portion of the United States. It would mean jobs in Texas, jobs in Port Arthur. It would mean the refineries would hire more people. It would mean that we could sell more diesel, gas, fuel, whatever it is, jet fuel around the world. It would help with our imbalance of trade. It would give us economic and energy security right here. While I'm on that subject, how many of y'all are hearing that the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is being drawn down by the president? Some of y'all are hearing that. 59% of the SPR, Strategic Petroleum Reserve, is housed in our district. Did I mention we're huge on energy? 59%. Now, when the president announced he was going to withdraw to get the price of gasoline down, let's be honest, to get the price of gasoline down, it is an election year, when he announced he was gonna withdraw 1 million barrels a day for 180 days. Any math majors? 180 million barrels of oil. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve holds 714 barrels of oil. That's its capacity. It is now down to the lowest 400 million barrels of oil, the lowest it's been since 1984. He has authorized another, I think, was it 40 million barrels a week or two back? Now it's 60 million barrels. I can't keep up with all of it. If we had to go to war, we would be in dire straits. When you say strategic petroleum reserves, I'm thinking that what that reserve is used for is something that's strategic. Did I miss that? Not just to get the price of gasoline down. Next thing you know, he'll be forgiving college debt. Oh, wait. I'm sorry, he already is. Energy for us is absolutely huge. And Sally, thank you for your kind words about appropriations. Assuming the Republicans do take the House back, Kay Granger will be the next appropriations chair. She's been the ranking member on appropriations chair since the Democrats took over, and she was very powerful in the appropriations committee way before the Democrats took. She was next in line for the chairmanship before the House changed hands. It will be absolutely critical to have those relationships, to do the kinds of things with appropriations, to do the kinds of things with beach nourishment we all talked about. Absolutely critical. Don't you know that with the current geopolitical scene, with us having as much LNG, liquefied natural gas, as we have in this country, how many of y'all think that Europe and Ukraine and the rest of Europe would much rather be buying from us than from Putin? Folks, it has geopolitical implications. You have a dictator on the other side of the world who's using energy as a tool, as a blackmail tool, to keep people in bay and to make him do his bidding and to literally take countries. So let's be clear, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, I actually have a bill that comes out. It's a HRES, it's a letter that a bunch of members have signed on to that says to the president, stop, I could go into all the details, but stop depleting the SPR. We've got enemies in the world that hate us. Nobody wants to have to pay higher gas prices. How many of y'all were here in '73 when the Arabs taught us about oil embargoes? Like, yeah, I was too. I remember long gas lines and stuff. It's not pleasant. It's not fun. Stop depleting the oil reserves because we may have to have them for our military. What else can I tell you about what we're working on? Me and a friend across the aisle, a Democrat friend across the aisle, are working on a bill that says they're talking about windmill farms out off in the Gulf, out in federal waters. How many of y'all know they drill oil wells out in deep in the federal waters? Sure. Well, if they're gonna put windmill farms out there, mine and Lizzie Fletcher's bill is that there ought to be a certain percentage of that revenue, right? They sell leases, the federal government leases that area to somebody to put a windmill farm out there. Some of it's like the Go Mesa, it's kind of like oil platforms. A certain percentage of that comes back to the states. Why shouldn't we get revenue from those federal leases like we do the oil leases, and we use that money for, I don't know, coastal protection, coastal barrier, whether it's drainage, whether it's right here on the good old Texas Gulf Coast. It just makes sense, makes absolute sense. So we're working on that together. We just hope that the Biden administration will wake up. Fossil fuels, they seem to have a war on fossil fuels. How many of y'all remember Winter Storm Uri February before last? And I don't mean to pry, but how many of y'all lost power during Uri? A lot of us did, absolutely, a lot of us did. That was the perfect storm, and you may or may not know that Texas is the number1 wind energy state in the country. We have more wind energy than anybody else. 20% of our energy portfolio, ERCOT, is windmills. We're number2 in solar panels. Does anybody know who's number1 in solar panels? Say it. Of course, Sally would know. California. Yeah, you betcha. I'm trying to figure out how that happened. We got to be number1. I mean, Texas, things are bigger and better. Here's the point. Windmills froze up with with Winter Storm Uri. How cold was it on Galveston Island during that time? Anybody? Was it 20 something?
14 degrees.
14 degrees. I was using 18 degrees. Born and raised, and I mentioned I'm born and raised on a 20-mile radius. I've never seen it be. I was using 18 degrees on Galveston Island.
Global warming.
Global warming? Yeah, part of that global warming. Yeah. And we need a reliable form of energy. It was a perfect storm. A lot of the plants had shut down for maintenance because it doesn't normally get that cold in Texas. When I was in the Texas House, I had South Texas Nuclear Project in my district over in Matagorda County. I've been there and watched it with our own eyes, me and some of your staff, because we work for y'all. We watched them change out spent fuel rods. And it was fascinating to watch them get those rods out. They do it safely, they do it cleanly, and they can produce energy. Well, as some of you may know, STP, South Texas Project, froze up because their pipes weren't insulated, and the cooling water they needed to cool their reactors weren't operating. It was the perfect storm. I'm for renewable energy. We want to use renewable energy as a supplement, but we've got to have reliable, dependable, affordable, solid fuel supply, whether it's natural gas, whether it's nuclear. And folks, there's nothing wrong with nuclear. I was talking with one of my friends across the aisle. In fact, he's on the subcommittee with me, energy. And I said, you need to come to this nuclear energy. We're having about the newest form of nuclear reactors. He said, Randy, he said, I won't be interested in nuclear energy until you prove we can do it safely. And Dave, I looked at him and I said, I can prove that with 2 words. Nuclear submarines. We put up whatever it is, 100, 110 people underwater in a submarine for days and weeks at a time. And of course, months at a time. Right, absolutely. And we do it on aircraft carriers. We can do it safely, And we just need to be able to store the waste, for example, in Yucca Mountain. Right now, they're forcing nuclear plants to store the waste in the backyard of the neighborhoods or the cities and counties that they're in. It makes no sense. Fossil fuels are not bad. I'm trying to convince my friends across the aisle. Fossil fuels are not the enemy. Greenhouse gases are the enemy. And folks, we produce energy cleaner than any other country in the world. And so we've got the largest carbon capture sequestration storage facility in the country over in Port Arthur, Texas. We capture the carbon that comes away from this stuff. We produce it cleaner than Russia, cleaner than China, cleaner than Mexico, cleaner than India, who, after we've killed our fossil fuel industry, I'm sure all of those countries will kill theirs. They'll follow suit. No. So we've got to maintain our energy industry big time. This district is huge in that. Yes, coastal barrier. We do have the Texas Gulf Coast Protection District, right? And Sally's on it. And how many members, Sally? Is it 5 or 7? 7. And Mayor Michelle Bechtel.
Pardon me, what am I thinking? 11.
11.
6 governor appointees.
Oh, yeah.
Each of the 5.
Each of the 5, yeah. So I'm in close contact with them. We're paying attention. I hope that the state of Texas comes out with the matching funds. Some of us talked about matching funds when you have that private-public partnership. We have a local sponsor. And I'm not going to try to put any pressure on the state legislature. Well, yeah, I am. But they've got a $24 billion with the B surplus. So I'm hoping that they'll come out with some money so that the matching part won't be so big on Galveston, so big on Galveston County, that indeed they will help. As you know, the GLO controls the beach, quote unquote. It has that purview. So I'm hoping that they will help. And I could go on and on and on about stuff like that. Let me just say this. When the Republicans get back in control, there's 4 things we want to do. And I can go through the details in more later in a lot more detail. Number 1, we want an economy that's strong, right? We want a nation that's safe, less crime, more police officers. We want a future that's built on freedom, not government restrictions, but a future built on freedom. And number 4, we want an accountable government, a government that's accountable to the people of this country. the people of this state, the people of this district. Whether it's the FBI with fake warrants, and our youngest son's a special agent with the FBI, they're great rank and file folks. Some bad actors at the top who need to be held accountable. Whether it's Justice Department, whether it's Secretary of Homeland Security, Andrew Mayorkas, I'll call him by name, claims that the border is safe. Folks, 2.1 million illegals came across the border during his term. Now, when I was in the Texas House, 4 years I was on the Public Education Committee, K through 12. Let me put this in perspective, and thank God Terry Leo Wilson's running for state rep, because she spent time on SBOE, State Board of Education. How many years were you there, Terry?
3 terms.
3 terms. Is that 4 years?
10 years.
10 years. Well, thank you for that service. And of course, my beautiful bride taught 4th grade 27 years. You don't think I slept, breathed, ate, and drank education, but here's the point. Texas has 5.5 million students, K through 12, kindergarten through 12, no college, no junior college, right? And there's 254 counties, so there's 5.5 million students. There are about 1,100 school districts now. There was 1,000 when I was there. I'm going to use 1,000 to make the math simple, and 5 million students. If you divided 5 million students by 1,000 school districts, that makes the average school district 5,000. Y'all with me? Math we can do, okay? Well, we all know out of the 254 counties in Texas, there are some counties that have less people than they do cattle. I mean, they're really small counties, really small schools. And we know that Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Fort Worth, Dallas, that all skews the numbers really big time. So let's just say the average school district is about 10,000 students. When you bring in 2 million students, if let's say 1/4 of them are kids, K through 12, that's 500,000 kids, K through 12. With the average school district being 10,000, you just brought in 50 complete school districts in a little over a year and a half that somebody has to pay to educate. Do y'all know who that somebody is? It's us, isn't it? We cannot afford to be the charity for the whole world. So, a great district. Republicans are seeking to make the border safe, seeking to get the fuel prices down, seeking to once again get energy going, let the Keystone Pipeline rock and roll. Of course, it requires a presidential permit. That's a problem. Make it where oil companies can drill more leases, more federal lands opened up, more offshore lands opened up, offshore drilling opened up. It's going to be interesting to watch because President Biden will still be in the White House. The thought is we may gain a 1 seat in the Senate. So we'll be sending appropriation bills to him that do those kinds of things. He'll be in a bind. Will he sign those appropriation bills to move the country forward, onward and upward, as the old saying is? Or will he veto them and shut the government down? It's going to really be interesting. At any rate, we're working hard. Have always been around this district. Brenda grew up over on the other side in Nederland. She used to go to Crystal Beach on the weekends when she was in high school. I went to Galveston and to Surfside. How many of y'all been to Surfside? Yeah, absolutely. And I told her the rumor in high school was that some boys chased girls on the beach back then. It's just a rumor I heard. So I've known this area for a long time. She's been on this side. We love this area. This is our area. It's been an absolute pleasure to represent y'all in it. And I'll stop there. I could go on and on about how great it is, but I'll open it up for questions, Jerry.
Any questions? There's one.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you talk about the fentanyl crisis?
Yeah, thank you, Jerry. Good point. The fentanyl crisis. This is astounding. CDC came out with figures for last year, I forget the exact figures, but I'll round it, 106,416 people died, ages 1845 from fentanyl. Let me put that in perspective. If it's 100,000 deaths a year, that's 300 people a day dying. 300 people a day dying. Now, just imagine this, if you had 2 airliners with 150 people on each airliner, if you had 2 airliners crashing in the United States and killing 300 people every day, how many days do you think that would go on before there would be a huge public outcry? We're getting fentanyl across our southern border. One thing I didn't say when I was in the Texas legislature was I was the vice chairman of the Borders Committee, our second term. I went down there and saw it with firsthand and talked to Steve McCraw, director of the DPS. Some of y'all probably seen him on TV or might have met him. How bad it was. 5,000 Texans that first year I was there, and that was in 2009, had been burglarized, robbed, sexually assaulted, raped, some killed, homes broken into, cars stolen by people who aren't even, pardon me, by people who aren't even supposed to be in this country. Now you've got an invasion of fentanyl, Terry was great to point out, manufactured by China, given to drug lords, and they're sending it over here to kill our children. How many of y'all have heard that they now have a candy laced with fentanyl called rainbow candy? And I'm really concerned because Halloween's coming up. And for a young kid to look at that, pick it up, I'm like, man, there could be a lot of hurting families and moms and dads and grandparents that lose their little ones because we don't control the southern border. We've got to get control of the southern border. Thanks, Terry. Yes, sir.
I talked to you a little bit this morning before the meeting about the problems that Galveston is having with the U.S. postal system here in Galveston, and the millions of dollars the Galveston papers put in the paper has been stolen in checks. I'd just like to have you tell me a little bit about what you know,
Right.
trying to get it squared away.
Good point about the Galveston post office here. We're on it. We've been on it for actually longer than people know about, for 3 or 4 weeks. About 3.5 weeks ago, I told you're very capable staff in DC. How many of y'all have been to your office in DC? We got to get more of y'all to come up there. Come up there, you'll see that in the door into your office where the flags are, there's a plaque that says this office belongs to the people of the 14th District of Texas. So thank you for letting me work there. Anyway, I talked to the staff there and I said, I want cities. I want every single city actually the 4 counties, and we'll pick up Orange too. I want them all alphabetical, and I want every single post office listed. I want the postmaster's name for every single office, and I want the phone number contact. So they went back in the records and they pulled them all. It was like 40 cities or something like that. And do you know, as we were discussing, did you know that of those 40 cities, only 2 phone numbers were correct? I want to be able to contact every single person there is. So we got on the horn. We called the U.S. Postmaster's office, and I want to have a conversation with the postmaster. Well, he sent us to the deputy, and we chatted with them and with their congressional liaisons, and they gave us. We said, look, we need all the names. We need all the right records because we want to be able to reach out and talk to people. I want to be able to walk into a post office and talk to them face to face, and talk to them about their problems. And I said, what are you doing about the theft? We talked about employee problems where they can't have enough personnel. We talk about facilities where there's ceiling coming down or there's mold or whatever. We talked about all those problems. And then we also talked about, of course, the theft, specifically the Galveston. And they said, yeah, we're aware of it. And then he said, but you have to remember something, Congressman Weber. Crimes increased 16% all across the country. And I'm like, well, I don't really care about, I mean, nothing personal. That's not an excuse. We got to go right at that. He goes, we are. They use what's called postal inspectors. And he says they do have a program that they're doing. They actually have people on the ground in a lot of these facilities trying to make sense of what's happening, why it's happening, and to pinpoint the problem and to apprehend the culprits. He said we don't put that out in the media because we don't want the thugs, criminals get pretty smart, pretty creative. Have y'all noticed that? They get pretty creative sometimes. He said, so we're working on it. He said, we can give you a private briefing. We were on an open call, a Zoom meeting. So we can give you a private briefing, but please, please, please don't put our tactics out in the public, I said, we'll make that happen. That was just last week. So we're on it. We're working on it. We'll be reaching out to all the postmasters one at a time and keeping call records on it. you know, what their problems are at their post office, how we can fix it, especially those down here. Some of you may or may not remember that when we first got elected, my first term, Galveston Post Office wasn't even mowing their grass for a long time. So I got your district director, Jed Webb, and I said, let's go get the truck and trailer, let's get a lawnmower and a gas can and pour it all, and weed eater, let's go down and mow that sucker. We'll be there tomorrow morning at 9. Well, unfortunately, we put it on Facebook, come help if you feel led to help. Well, I guess the post office got wind of it, because you know what, when we showed up at 9, guess who was there mowing? Oh yeah, their landscape team. Hadn't mowed it in 3 or 4 weeks. I'm like, God, why does it take that, you know? But we're on that, and we'll stay in tune and keep you all in touch, because something has to be done. Thank you for the question. Yes, sir.
While we're talking about the post office, any idea when we'll get this mailing address problem fixed?
Well, your great city council member, Marie Robb, and I've been talking about that. We'll reach out on their behalf, on y'all's behalf. Some of the residents have mixed emotions about that. Whether or not they want, I think it's a tiny minority, whether they want their actual mail address known or pick it up like they've been doing. But we're on that. We started that ball rolling. Yeah. So we'll see. I don't know if they have to do a step. I don't know what that means. This is something I've never had to do. If they have to do a study or whatever, go ahead.
At a very minimum, I understand if someone doesn't want to change, but we should be able to have an option. It's a big deal in the country, it's not a choice. It'd be good to have.
Right, good point. And I asked Marie, I don't remember what your answer was, quite frankly. You know, in some communities, you have a homeowners association, HOA, and they, I don't know if the right word is require, or if it's in their bylaws or whatever, where there's an off-site mail facility. You know, you've seen a bunch of boxes and stuff. Does that exist?
How ours works is, the West End is considered a rural route. Even though, like, Bermuda Beach has mailboxes. I assume you still do. I know before Ike we did. That was when I lost my house in Ike. I think Spanish Grant may also.
Yep.
They have mailboxes, and then the rest of us have the PO boxes, and it has nothing to do with HOAs or so forth. It has to do with the post office. And where the big issues come in, like one I can cite in Pirates Beach, is so in Pirates Beach, people's address are 4102 Pirates Beach, let's say. Well, there's also a Pirates Beach Drive.
Oh.
So you could live on, let's say, Sand Crab, but your address is 4102 Pirates Beach, and so your mail goes to the other person's mailbox. There was just a picture, because now that the post office is involved in delivering UPS, there was a picture that went up on the Pirates Beach neighborhood site where a house that's for sale, I guess when they can't figure it out, a house that for sale had 15 deliveries of different people's names that were just dropped at this empty house. Someone happened to see it, took a picture, and everyone from the neighborhood that had their packages delivered there. So this is a deep-rooted problem that we definitely need your help.
Well, thank you. I forgot that you talked about your HOA. Yeah, Jerry. Oh, I'm sorry. But we're on that, and we'll get that looked at. I don't know what that requires from the post office. I don't know if it requires a letter from the city. We've never had to address this. Yes, sir.
They're saying it's gonna take 5 years to correct. If it was your mother not getting her medicine, if it's the medicine, it's not just the inconvenience. How much of a priority and how long would it take? Would it take 5 years?
Boy, that's a good question. I wonder if we could get a letter. What do you think city council would think about that? And by the way, I know that the west end of the island pays a large amount of property taxes. Back to what Commissioner Joe Giusti, that has not escaped me, what Commissioner Giusti was saying. So, come on, y'all, let's get this. You think council would send a letter?
I don't don't think council would have an issue. The soonest I could do it would be November 14th, or I may be able to do it without a meeting. But just to that 5 years thing,
Yeah.
they've been saying it's gonna take 5 years for 5 years now.
So who's telling you that? The local post office?
The postmaster.
The local postmaster. We'll get a letter off to the postmaster general. Blake and Lane, let's get that on our list, yeah. And
You
we
never introduced her, by the way.
I didn't introduce Laney? Oh,
I
okay.
didn't hear her.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. Well, you know what they say, behind every good man is 4 or 5 women, you know? So, anyway, so great question. Any others? Yes, ma'am.
I always enjoy listening to you. It is just, I always enjoy listening to you. It is
Thank you,
always
Peggy.
so informative. A couple of items I'd like to highlight. Number one, I'm always pleased to hear how engaged you are and informed on all of what I consider the major issues that impact our district, as well as some of the smaller ones, not minor, but smaller ones. But on behalf of the northern part of the county, Congressman, we cannot express our appreciation enough for your support of getting our Lower Clear Creek and Dickinson Watershed Bayou Steering Committee studies in WRDA. I mean, that was huge for us. And we will never be able to tell you how much we appreciate that. The other part of this is, as we're talking about all of the big drivers of our community, the other part that I think you are well engaged, I've seen you on panels, you've talked articulately, and I know behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, you're working big time, and that is for our aerospace community. And it is to be sure we stay number one in the R&D in the space community. It's not just about JSC, it's about our presence for technology. So I am so appreciative, and I hope that there's a recognition as we go forward that not only the experience you had in the state, how you carried that forward with your networking into the congressional arena, and how valuable that is to us. So thank you for always being there and in the community, to you and Brenda, everywhere, every time we ask you, you're there for us. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Peggy. I've got the gas bill to prove that we're everywhere too. But that's okay, gas is cheap, right? I appreciate that. I appreciate you bringing up the space, because I am on the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. One of the bills that actually President Trump signed into law in 2017, and this is a 2-step process, 3-step really. You go through the authorizing, Sally talked about it, you go through the authorizing committee, let's get a budget for NASA, for example. Let's debate the budget. What does all that look like? Let's decide on the number. Let's authorize that. Send it over to the House. Now it's got to go through appropriations. The appropriators have to decide whether they want us, whether they want to agree with our bill, whatever it might be. And it's got the Senate as well. And once we get it then on a spending appropriations bill, then that bill has to be voted out. Well, one of the bills that President Trump signed in 2017, I put, is the Nuclear Energy Innovation Capabilities Act, NECA, N-E-I-C-A, that says to the Department of Energy, let's make the next round of nuclear reactors. I talked about them earlier. They're called SMR, small modular reactors. You know, they can build one, put it on the back of an 18-wheeler that'll power 5,000 homes now. It's a molten, I'm getting down in the weeds a little bit. It's a molten salt reactor. It doesn't go into meltdown. It'll shut down automatically if there's a problem. Let's get that next round of research, the Department of Energy, geared up and going so that we can produce them over here. Russia is out producing us. China is out producing us in the nuclear arena, and that is not good. Space. We need to be preeminent in space. Russians have already shown they can shoot down our satellites. How would y'all like to be without your GPS on your cell phone or satellite communications for a single day? So thank you for bringing that up. We're huge on making sure that we are preeminent in space. And finally, chips manufacturer. We want to manufacture all the chips over here. We should have learned during the COVID virus, the pandemic. Chinese aren't our friend. Talk about medicine, your mom getting medicine, not getting her medicine. We don't want them to be supplying us with important things. Randy said, well, people say, well, Randy, I thought you were a free trader, free exchange trader. I am. So I don't care if you buy baseball caps, go Astros, right? I don't care if you buy baseball caps and t-shirts from China. I don't want them making, this will scare you. Some of their chips go in our military stuff. Did y'all know that? We buy chips that go into our military vehicles and weapons from China. I want those manufactured right here. I want all that supply chain right here. So thank you for bringing up space, Peggy, because it is huge. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I know this is a speculative question, but it gives me great angst. We're looking at a timing challenge with our coastal project, our coastal storm surge protection project. We need authorization to get funding.
Yeah.
And it's a timing thing, and we see opportunities to get the authorization, we see opportunities to get the funding, and it could very well all get wrapped up into one big huge bill. And I'm just, what are you seeing on the House side with regards to a supplemental appropriation, with regards to informal negotiations on the border bill, and how that might all merge together and give us both authorization and funding at the same time?
Could you all hear Sally? Oh, okay. How do we merge authorization on all the stuff that we've got to get done here? And what are we seeing on the House side? And let me back up and say something I should have said earlier. Some of the things that we were able to do for Galveston, I got my good friend Lizzie Fletcher, Sylvia Garcia, and our help from our Texas Congress men and women to help with that. There is bipartisanship alive and well, believe it or not. You don't see it on the news much, but it is alive and well. Unfortunately, the House leadership on the Democrat side has not let out in the committees a lot of discussion about appropriations, okay? I'm talking to Kay Granger, you were in that meeting, and she ended that meeting, by the way, if you remember, she said, listen, thank you all for being here, and she looked at me, she said, if you got any other questions, talk to my partner. And I thought, boy, that's great to be a good friend of the next Appropriations Committee chair person. I'm glad that she really enjoys our relationship, and I do too. She's a nice, smart lady from Dallas, Fort Worth area, rather. She was the mayor of Fort Worth. We do have bipartisan buy-in. Very few bills have gone through the committee. They've been kind of sent through with just input from the leadership on the Democrat side. And Kay Granger has been quick to point that out. Rosa DeLauro is the committee chair right now. She's a Democrat, a lady from New Jersey, I think it is. Connecticut, thank you. I knew it was somewhere up in the Northeast. And Kay says that she's just not letting her, as the ranking member, have a lot of input. Cruz is on board, Cornyn's on board. That's good for us over in the Senate. But as you know, it only takes one senator to hold things up. So we want to get the authorization complete and finished. We want to get the appropriations bill. It's going to be in steps. Will it be in 23? Will it be in 24 for us? Sooner the better. But I've been making the rounds to my friends on both sides of the aisle and saying, look, this is important for Texas. I was asking Marie if she remembered Bill Merrill did a CD, Dr. Bill Merrill, A&M, that shows all the destruction from Hurricane Ike. I don't know if any of y'all ever saw that CD. I downloaded it into my computer somewhere. I think I can find it. And it's amazing the damage along the Texas Gulf Coast. And as I already said, gasoline prices spike. So as long as we can make people understand that this process needs to be sooner rather than later, if it will not be allowed to become a political football, we should be as succinct and quick as we can. And I watch the Senate with a great degree of interest because, as I said, it only takes one senator to throw a fly in that ointment. But believe me, we're working hard toward getting that ASAP. Any other questions? Well, I want to say thank you for having us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Congressman Weber. How about a nice round of applause for him? He's doing such a great job for us. Thank you again. outside of that, our next meeting will be January 21, 2023. I'm sorry. So,
Police. Okay. Somebody walked in from the police department that you want to say.
oh. Lieutenant Ochoa, do you have any words to say? She's our police report for the West End.
Sergeant, I will pay that ticket, I promise.
I'm Sergeant Gill. I'm one of the new West End sergeants. Lieutenant Ochoa is actually wrapped up today. She sent me in her place. If y'all have any questions, concerns, anything that you're noticing as far as crime trends on the West End, I'm gonna hang around after the meeting for a while. Please come see me. I'm happy to answer any questions, and if something is standing out to you, let me know so we can fix it. Like I said, I'm new to the West End. I worked towards the center of the island most of my career. I've been here about 10 years, but I'm a believer in nipping things in the bud and fixing them before they become bigger problems.
Marie's got a question.
I have a comment, not a question. But the one thing that is on the rise on the West End as well as on the entire island is auto theft. And primarily it comes from the fact that we don't lock our cars. But I have seen in videos from most of the West End subdivisions where it's young kids going around trying the doors open, they're taking what's in the car. So very important, because we do have constitutional carry, do not leave your guns in the car. There has been many a gun that have been taken out of the car, and as we know, there is a lot of gun issues that are on the rise, but a lot of the car thefts come from the fact that we aren't locking the cars. And again, as always, we get the number of police by the number of calls that go in. So I don't care how small the theft it is, call the non-emergency police number. If you see a strange person roaming around your neighborhood, call the non-emergency police number. Because the other thing is happening is the homeless are moving west, because we have a lot of houses that aren't full-time and they are making camp under houses. They have been found camping out behind this hideous Dollar General that I still boycott. I have never walked in that store and I will never walk in that store. They are definitely moving west. So just please be conscious of your surrounding as well as your neighbors' surroundings. But crime is on the rise and our police are doing a fabulous job, and welcome.
I'm going to harp on that a little bit. If you notice somebody in your neighborhood, I'm going to harp on that a little bit. If you see somebody in your neighborhood that doesn't belong, that clearly doesn't belong, they stand out. It's obviously not somebody renting an Airbnb for the weekend. They don't have beach gear. If they look homeless, not one of the Jimmy Buffett Club, they do not look homeless. But if they obviously look homeless, if they've got the shopping cart with everything in it, I understand that a lot of you have a lot of heart for them and that they're in unfortunate situations. However, you shouldn't be the victim of some of the things that it could bring to your neighborhood. Please call us. We will find some. We have great resources on the island. The Salvation Army, we have breakfast downtown for them every day. We have resources on the island for them. Please do not give them free things. Please do not allow them to stay under a house. Call us. We will find somewhere that is both safe for them and safe for y'all.
Give us the non-emergency number.
Absolutely call the non-emergency number, but if you think that they are on a property that they don't belong on, that they're trespassing actively, and that they may do property damage, please call 911.
What is the non-emergency? emergency?
It is 409-765-3702.
Yes. Hi, welcome. You can tell we love our police person, so anytime you join us, we will ask you to provide any information possible. So prepared to be in the spotlight whenever you join us, and thank you so much. Is it protocol for us to contact you directly, or do we just absolutely have to go through the non-emergency number or 911?
You can call me directly. I don't have a problem with that. I give my cell phone number out pretty often. The only deal. I'm sorry?
It's important to call the non-emergency.
I was going to say, you can call me directly if you have a question, just as far as how do I establish power of attorney, things like that for your property. How do I have a periodic check set up? If you're going to be out of town for a couple of weeks, we can drive by your house and check on it for you. If you have questions, call me. I'm happy to answer them. If you have something actively going on, call the non-emergency. It's a recorded line, which helps us if our dispatchers have to go back and listen to the conversation to get that information again, because it maybe didn't get typed in the first time. And then also, since we're on 12-hour shifts, I only work 7 out of 14 days. There is a opposite shift, West End Sergeant, that there's a 50% chance I'll be off that day.
What's your cell phone?
It is 409-784-8809. I'm Sergeant Gill, G-I-L-L, like the fish gill. It's very convenient.
And you're opposite? Who's your other?
I'm opposite Sergeant Pilsner. I'm going to stress it again. We had an issue with some of the houses in Sunny Beach they were squatting in, that they got in, and I cannot describe the damage that some of the homeless will do to a beach house. Please call us.
I am going to make one more comment, because this is something, at least I am on council addressing with our police people as well as with our county commissioners. So whenever a homeless person or a person who is brought to the jail, the county jail is on Galveston. When that person gets let out of jail, it's not like we have an escort, or it's not like, the League City Police come back and pick up that person and bring them back to League City. That person gets let out here. And a lot of times, people who end up in our jail don't necessarily have a huge support system. And that person is, boom, now homeless on Galveston. And that's a huge issue. So I have been working with our police chief, talking with the county, like, what can we do to stop that from happening? Because it's hard to convince me that that's not part of the reason we have such a growing homeless population. The other thing we need you to report, because it is becoming an issue as more and more cover bus stops come into play. If you see someone sleeping on the seawall or camping on the seawall or the beach, please call the police for that, because that's becoming a growing issue too. Anyway, I just wanted to make you all aware of that, because it is something I'm working on, and it is something I'll be calling for your support with. Those League City people.
They're the ones. Well, one item we haven't done on our agenda here, because we didn't have a quorum until Peggy got here, and that's to approve of the September 30th financials and the September 17th minutes. Okay, Peggy.
Second.
Okay, Dan. Okay. Well, I think that completes it. Congressman Weber, thanks so much for all you do and what you've done. So we really appreciate it. As I said, our next meeting is January 21, 2023, we don't have any meetings in November, December. Mostly nobody ever came. Have a great Thanksgiving and have a great Christmas. Thank you all.